balancing a band is hard, and your band is huge.
Correct.
Which makes it even harder. How do you make it work?
I think if it was just the Michael League band, I don't know that I would have lasted. I think that being around inspiring people, that's just always been the gas in my tank.
You have a leadership role that is completely unique. You lead Snarky Puppy, GroundUP Festival, GroundUP label, many ensembles. You're producing records. You don't have the time to get caught up in any one project.
My business approach has always been like, I'm just trying to find solutions to problems. And then when I find the solution, people call that good music business. The week before family dinner, I had like $2,000 in my bank account and the record was gonna cost like 10. There's a lot of things I didn't really do well in my career, but just getting them done opened the opportunity for something else to be done well.
The famous moment of LALAH singing with you guys, and she sings that chord, and everyone freaks out.
She didn't do that in the rehearsal at all. And then it became like the thing.
Lingus hits the world, man. Tell me about composing Lingus.
In our video recording sessions, I've never chosen a take solely on what I thought was the best musical performance. It's always a combination of musical performance and the ghost in the room. Always.
You have such an eye for talent. Mark Lettieri, Bill Laurence, Larnell, Cory Henry, Sput. And Snarky even put Jacob Collier on early.
Quincy Jones just offered you a record deal and to produce for you. And you said, give me a few years to get my together. Like, what are you?
In 2016, you produced David Crosby's Lighthouse.
He was super into it. And so we made a last record with that band with Aaron Sterling on drums that has not come out yet.
Really?
Yeah, it's done.
So I heard that Snarky Puppy was essentially your way of getting to play because you considered yourself so bad that you didn't place into the school ensembles.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't place into the school ensembles not because I considered myself bad. It's because the teachers considered me.
Yeah, right.
These are the things you forget.
Yeah.
How long do you want this podcast to be, dude?
Go.
Let's drink coke off. Love kicking it, man.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Elmo Lovano here, and today I am joined with one of my favorite musicians in the game. You know him as the leader of Snarky Puppy, and his name is Michael League. Michael and I got to do a deep dive about the whole arc of his career, the entire trajectory, and I now have a much deeper understanding for how he got where he is today, as well as how he operates his whole musical universe. So I really hope you enjoy this episode with the awesome Michael League. I also want to take a quick moment to thank these companies for their support of the show and making this all possible. This episode is brought to you by our friends at the Pod Company and their product, the Sonopod. One thing that every musician knows is that staying healthy on the road isn't easy. Long flights, late nights, tour buses, rehearsals, and shows can all take tolls on your body. That's why I think the Sonopod is such a cool idea. It's a true dry heat sauna that reaches up to 185 degrees, giving you that traditional sauna experience, but it packs into a carry bag and sets up in just a few minutes. So whether you're on tour, traveling for sessions, or just tight on space at home, you could bring it with you and keep your wellness routine going wherever you are. It's made from 100% natural cotton, and people use it for recovery, muscle relief, better sleep, and overall wellness. Right now, the Pod Company is offering Go With Elmo listeners an exclusive discount. Use code ELMO at checkout to get the Sonopod for just $499, down from the original $999 retail price. They've sold out before, so if you've been thinking about it, do not sit on it. Check out the link in the show notes and use code ELMO. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I'd like to thank our friends at DistroKid. DistroKid is the easiest way to get your music on Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and 150 other platforms worldwide. For as little as $2 a month, you can release unlimited songs and keep 100% of your earnings. DistroKid also has an app that has a lot of fun features in it to help you promote your music or even do splits with your collaborators. So if you'd like to check out DistroKid for 20% off your first year, you can go to distrokid.com/VIP/Elmo. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Without further ado, here is my interview with the awesome Michael League. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. My guest today is a name you already know. A composer, a band leader, a bass-playing beast who's built an empire from the ground up, a full-on family dinner feast. Many Grammys deep in a league of his own, from Snarky Puppy to Crosby, this man's never alone. So many collaborations, just thinking about it makes me fatigued. Make a ton of noise for Michael League!
Wow, incredible. Did you get Dr. Seuss to drum that up? That was incredible.
Straight from the pages of Dr. Seuss. You know, that was the only book I ever read in my whole life, so I think it influenced me strongly.
Primary influence.
You know, I find something I like and I just stick with it. That was the first book, and I was like, I've peaked. I'm just going to stay right here. What's up, man? Good to see you.
You too. How's everything going?
Everything's good, man. I just literally flew in last night. I was in Greece.
Yeah, I heard.
We did the Jam Jam at the Temple of Zeus.
I can't imagine anything sounding more epic than that.
It was so epic. The Minister of Culture, thank you so much. The Minister of Culture of Greece gifted it to us, and we were able to do the first concert like that ever.
Wow.
On the ancient ruin of the Temple of Zeus. So thank you to the Minister of Greece. Thank you to Zeus. Zeus was in the building. It was lightning. There was birds. It was beautiful.
Oh, that's crazy.
So man, you're on a roll right now. Well, I guess you've been on a roll for like 20 years, but let me just say, it feels like the roll is rolling. But man, the new Snarky Puppy album, SOMNI with Metropole Orchestra and Jules Buckley is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And one of my favorite albums you've ever done is the new Yusu Indoor album that you produced and co-wrote on. Man, everyone listen to that album if you haven't yet.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really fun one. Really special.
And also your new album with your trio with Antonio Sanchez and Pedrito Martinez. Ellipsis is amazing. They're both friends. We had Antonio on the pod. That must be such a fun ensemble for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's kind of like the two of them are so incredible on their instruments. It's kind of like standing in between two machine guns. You know, you're just trying to, it's like the amount of information, you know, but it's incredible how much information they're dealing with every second, but they're so musical and so tasteful that it's almost kind of like you have a life preserver on the whole time. It's like, there's no way you could possibly get lost because they're playing in such a clear and meaningful way. You know, it's amazing playing with the two of them.
Yeah, that's a real unique lock right there.
Yeah, because I think all three of us are coming from different places culturally and, you know, with our backgrounds. I think Antonio's the most jazz of the three of us and really into kind of like electronic stuff. And I'm coming more from the world of Black American music. And obviously Pedro's coming from Cuba, you know, so it's a really interesting hookup.
You have a leadership role that is completely unique. Like you lead Snarky Puppy, the GroundUP Festival, GroundUP label. You have many ensembles. You're producing records. You're clearly very disciplined. Where does that discipline come from?
People say things like that to me, or they use the word organized. I don't feel disciplined or organized in any way. I think that when I'm working on other people's stuff, definitely, you know, for sure, because there's a responsibility to another human being. And I guess being raised kind of by a mom who has Greek blood and a Catholic dad, I think guilt is just kind of baked in, you know? So it's like you just don't want to upset people. You want to make sure everybody's happy. And so when I'm working with other people, I think I'm capable of being both those things, of being organized and being disciplined. But when it comes to my own stuff, I wouldn't say so at all. I think that the skill that I do have is that when I start doing something, I get really, really into it. Even if it's something that I hate, like laundry or cleaning the house or something. Like, I hate doing both of those things. The first 3 minutes are hell. And then by the 4th minute, I'm just so into it. Like, you could call me and say, you know, do you want to hang out with Stevie Wonder on a beach in Sardinia? And I'd be kind of like, no, I really just need to clean the house first. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get...
You lock in.
Just, yeah, whatever I'm doing, I just really lock into it. Sometimes it takes a minute, but then once I get into it, I'm there. So maybe that's a skill that I have. I wouldn't necessarily say discipline or organization are are on the skill set, but maybe they are. I don't know.
How do you push yourself to get into it?
It's hard. It's hard for me to change gears. I was just editing a record that I just recorded with Bill Laurence, the piano player from Snarky Puppy. We have a duo where I play oud and bass and acoustic.
Yeah, I love the duo.
Bass. Thank you. We just made a new record last month in France, and we're finishing mixing. And there was one last thing that I had to do to send to the mixing engineer, Nick Hard. And I was doing that when Michael Bowden called me to, get this whole thing set up before a chat. And yeah, it takes me a minute to like move from one thing to another thing. It's like, it's hard. I think I just do it. I just say like, you have to do this now, and then I normally procrastinate it for a minute and like postpone it and try to finish whatever it was I was doing. But for me, I don't understand how people do like, 20 different things in the same day and they switch gears like immediately. For me, that's really hard. I've had that life where I was doing something from 12 to 1 and 1 to 1:30 and 1:30 to 2:30 or whatever. But I don't think I did it well. I just did it. And I think actually maybe that's one of the biggest things about at least the music industry, maybe just life in general. It's like, maybe it's just more important to do things than to be worried about them being done well. Like, obviously I worry a lot about doing everything that I do well, but like, there's a lot of things I didn't really do well in my career, but just getting them done opened the opportunity for something else to be done well or something, And also it's like, when do you actually think that you've done something well? When do you finish a record and say, well, that's perfect? It's like, I just try to put it out before I hate it too much. Normally that's like my approach, like just like put it out, because if I had having to listen to this 20 more times, I'm going to hate it and then it won't come out. And if you don't put it out, then you don't make it to the next record. You know what I mean? It's like, so I don't know. I think I've learned to manage my perfectionism in that way of just kind of like trying to just say like, okay, I did this. I don't love it. At one point I believed in it, so it must be worth something. So I'm just going to put it out. And then even if I'm not in love with it now, maybe someone will like it. And then let me just move on to the next thing.
Yeah, because you're incredibly proficient. You don't have the time to get caught up in any one project. But do you not love your projects? Of course, not saying that they're perfect, but like, do you not love them?
Oh yeah. When I'm in them and I'm working on them, for sure, I'm like so immersed in the process. But I think that's the thing that I love, is like being in the process. It's not like, I'm not the kind of person that when they finish a record, they like invite all their friends over and play it for them and say like, let's listen to my album,
Yeah.
Like I do that. Actually, I do invite people over when I'm producing things for other artists to have them listen just to see who's reacting to what. And also when you put different people in front of music you've been listening to alone, you hear everything really differently, which I think is fascinating, how much other people's presence in a room affects your ears. So I do that. But again, that's part of the process. I do that as an essential element to the process of creating something meaningful. But then once it's done, like it's just done. I don't even like, especially if it's my music, my God, I'm normally so sick of it by the time it's mastered. If it's like, sure, the Youssou N'Dour record, it's Youssou's music. So it's like, I listened to that a couple times after it came out, But yeah, I don't like sit back and like, oh, I'm going to listen to the second Snarky Puppy album. I haven't listened to that record since it got mastered, probably, since a week after it got mastered. So I like doing things, and I like being in the process of doing something, because I think for me, the most important thing is just growth. It's just learning and evolution. And like, I don't learn so much polishing an award or sitting back and watching a video I made 10 years ago, or I feel like anything that there was to learn, I learned during that process, and now it's done. And I would rather spend my time learning new things. And I think that also maybe is kind of a stopgap to prevent me from being self-critical in a debilitating way, in a way that will stop me from creating output, because sometimes I listen to things that I've done and I hate it so much that if I keep listening to it, it's going to make me not want to do more things. And so I just have to think of it as like, okay, that's a photo I took at a certain point in time. You can't change a photo. It's done. Take some new photos.
I know that you've said that you prefer to live your life as an artist rather than like a business person, but there's still so much operationally to handle. So how do you balance your creative life with your operational life?
You know, I have a great team. That helped a lot because, you know, for a long time I was the manager of Snarky Puppy and I was the booking agent and the promoter and the graphic designer for the albums and posters and all this stuff that, you know, I did badly. But again, I did it. You know, going back to what we were saying earlier, like I didn't do great graphic design on those records. I didn't make really amazing posters, but they got done and that achieved something, you know?
Yeah.
And now I'm at a point where I have a manager and I have a booking agent and we can hire professional graphic designers and professional publicists. And like, so the quality of work in theory is a lot higher, you know? But I did feel at a certain point like I'm really spending 95% of my time doing non-creative things. You know, I'm doing emails, I'm doing phone calls, I'm doing scheduling, I'm doing all this kind of stuff. And in that 5% of the time, I was still able to, you know, eke out some creativity, writing songs for the band and working on different things with different people. But there was a moment in which I just felt like this balance really has to shift.
Yeah.
And it's not that I want to be like the stereotypical flighty artist who doesn't show up for meetings and like, you know, goes on a drug binge for 3 days instead of doing their podcast and their interview and their label meeting, you know. But somewhere in the middle, I think, is nice, you know. And I feel much more creative now that I'm doing less administrative work. I'm still doing a lot of administrative work daily, of course.
You must be still.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's
Yeah.
2026 and I'm a professional musician who is not doing
Yeah.
Who's-
part of it.
yeah, who's living like Hendrix did in 68, you know? I mean, it's like no one is spending 3 days on a mattress in New York City, you know, doing opium and then like playing a huge festival and making a bunch of money. You know, it's like, I think it's just we're just a different breed of musician now because we had to understand, above all, we had to understand how to promote ourselves,
Yes.
which I think is probably maybe the single worst thing that's happened to art in the last few decades.
Yeah.
People have had to look at themselves and say, what's special about me? And instead of thinking what artists used to think, which is what's special about me? Okay, let me develop that creatively. Now we think, what's special about me? How do I sell that to as many people as possible in as little time as possible? Which has always been something that has been done with artists. It's just there were other people wearing suits doing it,
Yeah.
not the artists themselves, you know? And so I think maybe this new kind of monolithic artist has become prevalent, you know, has been born. This kind of person I'm the person that wears the hat and makes this one face and does this little catchphrase and does this one thing musically that I learned and developed, and that's my thing, and that's what I do, you know, which is fine, you know, but it's like, I think being self-aware is great, but being like overly self-aware and making sure that that's always what you're giving people is kind of like something that maybe kills art.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's also cool. The other side of that sword is that artists are actually thinking about what makes them special, which I know when I was going to school in Texas, I think everyone could play their butt off, but they didn't really know who they were.
Right.
You know, and then I think we just the pendulum has swung so far to the other side of, that there's like kind of this danger of being monolithic as an artist and not really having a lot of amplitude or depth and just having this one thing. So, but you know, of course there's every kind of artist out there. No, I don't want to make it sound like that's how I think everybody is, but it's something that I didn't see when I was 20, and now I see a lot now that I'm in my 40s.
I mean, it's changed so much over the last 20 years. And I mean, you've done a really great job releasing projects that people pay attention to, which is incredibly hard.
Thanks.
Like, like it's not just doing it once, you've done it over and over and over again throughout these last 20 years. So like hats off to you for constantly evolving and figuring out how to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think if it was just me, if it was the Michael League band or project or whatever, I don't know that I would have lasted. I think that being around so many inspiring people in my bands, like Snarky Puppy and Bocante and Bill and Ellipsis and these bands that I have, but also outside, artists that I produce for, artists that I write songs with, artists that I arrange for, artists that I collaborate with in a variety of different ways. It's like those people and what they have offered me in terms of knowledge and inspiration, that's just always been the gas in my tank.
That's beautiful, man. You've been surrounded by many great people for a long time now, but a lot of that is you and how good of an ear you have.
Oh, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, I just feel like when I hear someone doing something that I love, a lot of the time I hear them in a context that maybe they haven't thought about. Like yesterday, I was driving to a tennis court to play tennis, and in the car, I was listening. I was like, what am I going to listen to? I was like, I'm going to listen to James Taylor. That was like my favorite singer-songwriter growing up, and probably still my favorite.
Yeah.
And I, the greatest hits, that whole era, everybody knows that there's this song from a more recent record, from like an early 90s record, I think. It's the first song on the record. I'm trying to remember the name of the record, but the song is called Line 'Em Up. And I listened to it and I was like, oh man, I remember hearing this song as like a 15-year-old, and I remember it was the first time that I ever heard a 2-5-3-6 pattern, because I wasn't really into jazz, when I was 14, 15.
Yeah.
And I remember the harmony just like moved me so much, and it was bringing back all these memories. And during the course, I was like, man, who would sound amazing singing this song? Jameson Ross, one of the 4 drummers in my band, who is also an incredible Grammy-nominated singer.
Yeah. And
I texted him, and I was like, or I left him a voice, and I was like, Jameson, man, you have to hear this song, Line 'Em Up. I haven't heard this song in 20 years, but you would love, I feel like you would love singing this song. And then I stopped the voice message, and then I realized, man, what would be really cool if Jameson and Jay White, who's this incredible singer and bass player that I met in Brooklyn, now lives in Nashville. I was like, they're good friends. They're like very kindred spirits. Like they should do a duo record together, And then I texted him back and I was like, Jameson, what do you think about, forget the song I just sent you. Forget all that. Like, what do you think about doing a record with Jay White? Like, we could just do it at my house. The 3 of us could produce it together. Like, what, 2 incredibly soulful vocalists and songwriters and instrumentalists who are like different sides of the same coin, And he hit me back and he was like, man, that's amazing. Yeah, yes, let's do that. Let's just do it. 5 days, we come to your house, And I think that maybe that is like, I know it's not the kindest thing to say about myself, but I feel like maybe that's my best attribute, like my strongest skill or my most developed talent is just like putting the right people in the right places.
But it's one thing to have the idea, and then it's another thing to actually execute on the idea. The fact that you go and make it happen.
Yeah, and that's not because I'm organized or disciplined. I think it's just because the idea excites me, and so it motivates me to get it done.
Yes.
And then once I'm in it, there will be all kinds of things that I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like carving out floor tom hits in a Pro Tools session or something. But because I'm already in it, that's fine. And I'm happy to do it. I'm happier to do that than to go to Sardinia with Stevie Wonder or something, because I'm already in that mode. So, yeah, I mean, but I think that is something that I really love. I grew up playing sports, and my favorite sports were always team sports, even though now my favorite sport is tennis, which is not necessarily a team sport. But
same, by the way.
You play tennis?
Absolutely.
I run a tennis tournament for musicians only.
What?
And it starts this weekend, Sunday, and we just had someone get injured and cancel.
In Spain?
Yeah.
I can't make it to Spain. I literally just flew back from Greece last night.
So you already know what the deal is. Take 2 days.
Dude, oh my God, if you would have called me yesterday, I would have canceled my flight back to LA and gone straight to Spain.
32 players.
No way.
Yeah, we've only got 31. Antonio Sanchez is playing. There's a lot of well-known musicians that play in it, but it's our 4th year.
Yeah, Antonio and I have talked tennis, but we've never played together.
Oh man.
I mean, I'm in LA, so I got my little musician scene out here of players.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll be watching the French Open and stuff on Sunday, like just chilling, having a little mini tournament on Sunday. Is that what you're doing? You're gonna like watch it and then play?
Yeah. Well, we have our round robin to determine seeding on Sunday, and then the tournament is everybody plays 3 matches. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the final is Thursday. We do it like Davis Cup style. So you do points, like 4 teams with 8 players and doesn't matter.
Oh, dude, I wish you would have told me yesterday.
I'll put you in the group chat and you can just tune it out or you can watch the antics in the chat because it's pretty wild. Iberian Open, we call it the Iberian Open.
The Iberian Open. Okay, well, that's a whole other thing, and I'm sure like Antonio Sanchez is probably somehow like the Alcaraz of the group, but
he's actually just started playing tennis.
Good.
So he's not better than everyone else yet.
Okay. I'm sure he will be.
Yeah.
Back to the show. Back to the show. Let's go back to the beginning. Born April 24th, 1984 in Long Beach, California.
Correct.
Did not know that. We're both 1984 and we're both born in LA.
All right.
You were born into a military family. My dad's a vet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Raised in Southern Alabama and Northern Virginia. Raised Catholic. Mother's side of the family is Greek. There was an oud in the house,
correct,
which I didn't know about, which makes a lot of sense for where you're at now musically.
Mm-hmm.
So you start playing guitar at age 13.
Yeah.
You switch to bass later. You're only like 17 when you switch to bass, right?
Yeah.
And then, early 2000s, you enroll in University of Northern Texas in Denton.
Yeah.
So I heard that Snarky Puppy was essentially your way of getting to play because you considered yourself so bad that you didn't place into the school ensembles.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't place into the school ensembles not because I considered myself bad. It's because the teachers considered me.
Yeah, right.
So
the teacher was no, Michael.
Correct, but I also considered myself bad. Yes, yeah.
So you started Snarky Puppy just for a way for you to play in an ensemble?
Basically, I mean, that was one of the reasons. Was I was writing music that wasn't really jazz and wanted to hear it played, and I had a lot of time. I was practicing, obviously, trying to get my stuff together to be able to be competitive at the school, but I wanted to, play in. I grew up playing in garage rock bands. It like felt weird to me to only play within the walls of a school,
Yeah.
So Snarky Puppy, it started as like a workshop for songs that I was writing and arrangements I was doing of other people's songs. So that's really the origin. It wasn't supposed to be what it is now. I never envisioned that.
That your college band would just
yeah, I definitely I would have
lifeline.
Would have come up with a much better name if I knew that it would still be around after all these
Mr. Snarky Puppy.
Yeah. God.
When you went to start Snarky Puppy, who were the first people that you called to be in it with you? Was it Bob Lanzetti and Nate Worth?
Yeah, Bob and Nate were in the original 10. There was a keyboard player from South Korea named Ji-Young Lee. She was also my jazz keyboard fundamentals professor. She was a grad student, amazing keyboardist still. She actually sat in with us when we played in Seoul last year. It was the first time we'd played together in like 20 years. So it was crazy. And then the first saxophone player was named Murray James Morrison. Alto, Brian Donahoe. There's a trombone player named Mike St. Clair. Mike Mosmar, who still plays trumpet in the band, was there. Nate Worth on percussion, still in the band. Bob Lanzetti, still in the band. Chris McQueen, still in the band. A drummer named John Deidemeyer, great drummer who lives in Chicago, plays on the jazz scene there.
So about a year later, 2005, you self-released the first, like, unofficial first album, Live at Uncommon Ground.
Yeah.
2006, The Only Constant, your first studio album, you start playing shows. And then the Dallas years come, right? So you spend about 3 years or so in the Dallas gospel R&B scene. mentored by Bernard Wright,
Yeah.
rest in peace,
Yeah.
the great Bernard Wright.
Yes.
And somehow enters Robert Sput, Searight, Sean Martin, Bobby Sparks. How did you meet them? How did they get in Snarky Puppy? And then how did that impact the sound?
I think it all goes back to this one night in Fort Worth. I played a jam session for $50 for 4 hours for basically the bartender.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was running the jam session and asked for me to come and play. And I, had just come from a church gig. I brought my double bass and it was a straight ahead session and we were playing and a trumpet player came, sat in, sounded amazing. And then asked to do like a tune with a backbeat and we did it. And on the set break, he said, "Oh, it sounds like you play groove stuff. You play electric bass?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I need someone for my church on Saturday night if you can come." So I said, "Yeah, sure, of course." So I went and played at this church in Haltom City, Texas, called Riverwalk Fellowship of Praise. I don't think it exists anymore. I went, and it was just the best band I'd ever heard in my life. It was unbelievable. It was so crazy. And it turned out that the guy that invited me to the church, the music director, at that time was an unknown keyboard player and trumpet player named Philip Lassiter, who then became...
Really?
Yeah. He was just some pastor's kid from Oklahoma that moved to Dallas and was starting to get on the arranging scene for gospel artists. And then years later, he's, the head of Prince's 14-piece NPG horn section and doing arrangements for all of the biggest names in gospel music. And, but at that time he was just kind of like a kind of great musician that no one had ever heard of.
I didn't know that part of the story. That's amazing. I've been friends with Lassiter for years.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that was Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all Phil's fault, really, and this church that he had me sub in, the band that night was Roy Hargrove's RH Factor without Roy. So it was Jason J.T. Thomas on drums, Keith Anderson on sax, Bobby Sparks on keyboards, Bernard Wright on keyboards. There was a different guitar player, Johnny Red, instead of Todd Parsno. But it was basically the RH Factor minus Roy,
That's crazy.
Plus Philip and me and Johnny Red. And it was just unbelievable. It was like the best musical experience I'd ever had in my life. And at the end of the gig, the end of the church service, I should say.
Yeah. It's a gig.
Yeah. For me, for sure. And at the end of the service, Philip asked me if I'd like to switch churches. He offered me the gig, and I said, 3 days a week playing with his band, like for sure. Although Bobby and Keith were just there as special guests that night, and I think JT was too, but Bernard was a regular member of the band. And the regular members were incredible. Johnny Red, Tim Macon, eventually Chris McQueen from Snarky Puppy got on the gig when Johnny Red quit. And I played 3 days a week there for several years and learned so much from Philip. And after a couple of weeks, Bernard kind of took a shine to me and asked me one Wednesday night. We used to do Wednesday night services, Saturday night services, and Sunday morning services. And one Wednesday he said, "Hey man, drive me to Dallas. I want to take you somewhere." So I said, okay. And he took me to a place called the Walrus, which was a little bar right next to the Dallas Aquarium. And a jam session had just started there a couple weeks earlier headed by a guy named R.C. Williams, who was Erykah Badu's music director. So it was basically Erykah Badu's band hosting this jam session, and I went. And that night I met Robert Sput, Searight. I met Sean Martin, and I met everyone else on the Dallas scene that then became a huge influence on me, and then became my community. And it was all just because Nard invited me to this session, and I went. He took me around, introduced me to everybody. I sat in, and then boom, like all of a sudden, within a couple weeks, RC was calling me for gigs, Sean was calling me for gigs, and then I was just, within like a month or two, I went from playing 4-hour steakhouse gigs or Frank Sinatra cover band things or whatever with almost exclusively white musicians to playing in black churches, R&B clubs, soul food restaurants with almost exclusively black musicians. So it was like just a 180. Thanks to Philip And thanks to Bernard,
Wow.
you know, and then that just changed everything. You know, Sput asked me if he could play with the band sometime. You know, Bernard became a member of the band. Sean Martin became a member of the band. Bobby Sparks became a member of the band. And then just like the music completely transformed. And not just because they were in the group, but also because the white musicians in the band started going down to Dallas all the time to check out these gigs. Because basically I was like, you guys, these are all the people we were studying in school. They're 45 minutes away. Like, and they're cool.
Yeah.
And they want to meet us and they want to play with us. Like, they don't look down on us as like overly intellectual, soulless, you know, suburban white school kids. Like, they're into it, you know? And so there was this really beautiful collision between the white school world of Denton and the black professional world of Dallas. And that link is still there. If you go to Dallas and you go to North Texas now, like, everyone at the school is hip to what's happening in Dallas. You have Dallas musicians coming up and playing in Denton all the time, which didn't happen when I was at school there, at least the musicians on that scene. You have the white, you know, musicians that are going to school, going down to Dallas on the weekends to check out Bobby. And, you know, it's really amazing what happened. And it was really just all Nard, you know, it was all Nard and Philip.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so Sput asked, like, oh, can I play with you guys? And Sean joins the band. Is it because they're coming and seeing Snarky Puppy play? Like, you guys are going to each other's things and they're like, wait, this is hip. And then you're like, hey, come sit in or come join. Like, it's just, how does that happen?
I asked Nard to play on a gig at the Granada Theater just to sit in. And he came. And I think that got people's attention. Like, because he was like, no, they're cool. The music's cool. And so if Bernard
being Bernard
correct.
Wright.
Sorry, Bernard Wright.
Yeah,
so
no,
when,
it's okay.
So when
just to be clear.
yeah. So when Bernard, you know, when people got wind that Bernard was playing with us and was into the music, I think that was kind of a stamp of approval. And then so Sput and Sean would come to see us play, and then they like, I remember Sput just straight up asked me, he's like, "Can I play in your band?" What am I going to say to that? You know, like, well, we have a drummer, we have keyboard players, but we can have one more of both. So come on in, you know, like, and that became kind of the attitude. I just didn't want to say no to people whose music I loved. So that's why the band kind of started to inflate.
Wow, that's so cool. It was very organically just happening in the scene between those two worlds coming together and you bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, and it was really, Nard was the linchpin, you know, because he had this Monday night gig at a place called Gazelig in Dallas with his trio, with Wes Stevenson, the bass player from the Funky Knuckles, and a drummer named John Carruth. And that Monday night gig was like going to pay homage to your God or your sensei or whatever you want to, you know, think of it. It was like the whole Dallas scene was there at worshiping at the altar of Bernard Wright every Monday from 9 to 1. You know, and technically it was a jam session after the first set, but it was kind of one of those things where like the music was happening at such a high level that some nights no one would sit in just because no one wanted to break its flow, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really amazing. And that's really, I learned more those Monday nights than I learned in any classroom, even in any church in my life. I learned more those Mondays because it was the culmination of what you learn in school, what you learn in church. It had 100% of everything. You know, it was intuitive, free, risky, improvisational, refined, explorative, simple. It was just like everything. It was unbelievable. Those gigs, they just formed me as a musician, and they formed everyone in my band.
And then immediately your proficiency is just going. You guys start dropping albums. 2007, The World Is Getting Smaller comes out. Justin Stranton joins. 2008, Bring Us the Bright. Mark Lettieri joins. 2009, you move to Brooklyn. You go over to New York and you do Tell Your Friends, and you introduce the signature live in the studio with the audience method. And it's so cool to see, like, to go back and watch that video and to see how that evolved into Family Dinner and everything else you're doing today, still with Snarky Puppy.
I think the kind of running theme with Snarky Puppy has been that we do something and we never know what kind of impact that thing is going to have on us. You know, that first record, like you said, the Tell Your Friends album, that format of bringing people into the studio and filming and recording live. And it was like, that was just a solution to a problem that we had, which is that people didn't really understand our music except when they watched us live. You know, it was like people, I'm not saying that they didn't understand our music. People didn't connect with the music. They didn't feel the full scope of it without watching the interactions between the band members and understanding what roles the instruments were playing. Because it's a large ensemble and everybody had pedal boards. So kind of in a way, like everyone's a guitar, even if you're a trumpet player, you know? So it was like, that was just a solution to a problem, you know? How do we get people to understand our music better? Okay, well, we just show them what we look like when we play it.
Yeah.
But also we want a high recording quality. So let's just do it in a studio, have people come in, we get the live energy, we film it, people see us. Okay, check, 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 boom, you know? I didn't think that that would be like our format for, you know, our primary format for album making for the next now 16 years.
Totally.
You know, and I definitely didn't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that it would be a format that then would be emulated by, you know, lots of different bands around the world, that it would just become like a new format. It was just a solution to a very individual problem that we had. I think that also happened with We Like It Here. To me, We Like It Here was just, it was a record. It was done in that same way. But at that time, we had already done Tell Your Friends and GroundUP in that same format. It was the third time doing it. You know, it was just another one, you know, and now like 13 years later, people are like, that's the one, you know? Okay. You know, I can't say that I agree, but I also can't argue with what, you know, a large group of people think. But people are like, when you finish that record, did you just feel like, yeah, that's it? Like, that's the legacy album, you know? And I thought, like, absolutely not. I've never felt that way. I've never felt that way after making a record. Like, that's the one. Normally, I feel like that's the best thing we've done so far.
Nice.
So let's do something else and do that one better than this one. You know, that's like normally my attitude. But I don't like kick back and, you know, light a cigar and revel in the collective greatness that is Snarky Puppy. You know, it's just like, okay, we just did that record. I'm glad that nothing caught on fire, and I'm glad that no one died. So let's just, you know, finish this, put it out, and play 180 more gigs, you know?
It is important, though, even just having the thought of, okay, this is the best thing we've done, on to the next one, on to the next one. You're always progressing. You're always dialing it in, because, I mean, you can see from that first one, you know, and then as it evolves, how you're getting better visually, like all the way up to SOMNI now, which is just the production and how gorgeous it is on camera. Everything about it, you could tell you've just been tweaking it and just dialing it in.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's just been the approach just the whole time with the band. It's like, just make everything a little bit better every time, you know, and don't put this tremendous pressure on yourself to be perfect from the beginning, or really to ever be perfect. Just like SOMNI, how do we make it look 10% better than, what was the last one we did? Like the Empire Central. Like, how do we make it look 10% better than Empire Central? How do we make it sound 10% better? You know, how do we compose in a way that's 10% better? You know, like just little steps, you know? I mean, of course, inspiration and the muse and all this kind of stuff plays a role in what we do as musicians. But I think more than anything else, it's just like, just process. Just taking steps and making decisions and doing things and being, was I about to say being disciplined? Yeah, but being disciplined in a way about like treating everything like a process. And I think when you do that, it takes away this fear of not being gifted enough or not being inspired enough or whatever. If it's like, okay, I need to write a song for tomorrow, I'm not inspired. Let me just sit down and come create a game in my mind to get the first notes out onto the piano or onto the guitar. You know, let me take the first line from a Shakespeare sonnet, you know, like, and put a note on each syllable and try to make it have something to do with that first phrase, and then ignore the rest of the sonnet and just listen to the phrase that I played and then take it from there. Or, you know, think about like let me listen to this Dr. Dre song and let me just random, and I'm going to steal one thing from that song, and I'm going to put it in different clothes so we don't violate any copyrights. But then I'm going to bounce off of that for the whole rest of the song. I'm just going to forget the Dre thing, but I'm going to take that one idea from it, or like just little tactics you can use or games you can play just to get the ball rolling. So that you don't get paralyzed by fear, by imposter syndrome, by lack of self-confidence.
Yeah.
Because those things can be really debilitating. They can completely cripple your ability to produce meaningful artistic things.
So when you guys trying to solve for that problem of people understanding Snarky Puppy, and Snarky Puppy is the first to do the headphones in the studio thing with the audience and the whole setup. And I thank you, by the way, because of that, because it was definitely influenced the Jam. Whose idea was that? Is that yours? Is it the guys that you're like, how do we show this? Like, how does that come about?
We were playing a gig in Athens, Georgia for like 20 people or something, or max 20 people, including the 10-piece band. And after the gig, somebody came up to me and said, "Hey man, I got to tell you this. I was standing with Sput, our drummer at the time."
Yeah.
And somebody came up to me and said, "Man, I got to tell you, I loved that gig, but I don't like really listening to the album so much. The live thing is just so much more understandable and accessible and special. Like, why don't you make a live record?" And I was standing with Spud, and I kind of made the joke. I said, like, live records almost always sound terrible. The only way I'm making a live record is in a recording studio, and I'll bring an audience in. And Spud looked at me and was like, "Well, that sounds interesting." So I kind of meant it as a joke, but Spud took it seriously. And then I was like, "Oh, I guess we could do that. And then, maybe we just film it so that people understand what's going on in terms of the interaction between band members." And so yeah, it kind of came out that way. I kind of have this person whose name I don't know, who I only saw once in my life, to thank for coming up and telling me that they hated our albums.
Thank God for their honesty.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And then Sput next to me going like, "Well, do it," So I guess it was a trinity there responsible for it.
Well, thank you to that anonymous person. We actually have them here in the waiting room. We're going to let them in right now. It's Michael Bowden. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. Sorry. That would have been great.
That would have been.
So 2012, you released GroundUP, and you found the GroundUP label under Rope-A-Dope.
Yes.
And you start signing. And you're building this. You get Bill Laurence. You have Banda Magda.
Mm-hmm.
Magda's so great. Was also just talking with her. Funky Knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
How did you make that happen?
I mean, we were in New York, and there were all these incredible musicians that just didn't have label support. They didn't have a home. They were just doing it the way that we did it independently until Rope-A-Dope signed us just before Tell Your Friends. And I just felt like this is such a pity that we have this amount of talent not able to be visible in the way that they deserve to be visible. And at that time, Snarky Puppy was just beginning to kind of garner a fan base. And so I thought, well, the people who like us are definitely going to like these artists. So how do I put them in front of the people who like us? How do I put these artists in the ears of the people who are listening to and supporting us now? And the best way I could think of was by starting a record label. So I called Louis Marks at Rope-A-Dope and said, "Can we start a sub-label under Rope-A-Dope and release albums using Rope-A-Dope's distribution and kind of using their machine?" And Louis was very generous and said yes. And that's how it started, just kind of trying to help our friends in New York who deserved more eyeballs in front of them and more ears for their music. And that's also how our festival developed. It's the same ethos. Everything GroundUP is like the same idea. It's like, it's not about signing the artist that everybody already loves and is mega successful. It's about connecting hungry and curious listeners with, their new favorite artists that they've never heard of. It's supposed to be a discovery point. I think there's enough there are enough festivals and enough labels out there hiring the same bands and same artists to headline, people whose names we already know. And I think, what I would like for my contribution as a label and festival owner to be exposure, to expose curious listeners to new sounds that they wouldn't otherwise have access to.
Man, well, you did it at the perfect time. It kind of all, I guess, just worked out, because then comes 2013, you record Family Dinner, Volume 1, and We Like It Here. And 2014, you get your first Grammy win. And I see your Grammys sitting on your shelf. I like that they're just like casually on the shelf, stacked back there.
Oh, they were on the floor for a while, but then Sput got mad at me. He came to the house and did a session and saw them on the floor under the couch, and he gave me a lecture.
He's like, cherish these.
Yeah. And
put them on the top shelf of this tiny rack
that's covered in petals, which get a lot more attention in this house than the trophies. But yeah,
trophies are quite dusty.
Yeah,
petals not so dusty.
They're there to provide stability.
Just holds the rack down.
That's right.
Yeah, it's your paper holder.
Yeah, paperweights.
2014, you get your first Grammy win. You win Best R&B Performance for Something with LALAH Hathaway off Family Dinner Volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I first discovered Snarky Puppy. And I think a lot of others too, that, the famous moment of LALAH Hathaway singing with you guys, and she sings that chord and everyone freaks out.
Yeah.
Family Dinner, you have LALAH on stage, you have this whole elevated production. Did you feel like, okay, this is really special? Like, I know you've already said that it wasn't like, you're not like, oh, we're going to make it or whatever, but like, how much, you can see the emotion coming out of you guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of all those records, at the end of Family Dinner, at the end of Tell Your Friends, at the end of We Like It Here, at the end of GroundUP, my God, there's just this massive exhale, where you just go, like, thank God we made it.
There must be so much tension and stress in those rooms because you have so many people.
Yeah.
Everyone's playing such precise things. Like even when I think about like Larnell's perspective or whatever, I'm like, God, if I was in Larnell's seat, I would feel like, we're 10 minutes into this tune. Here's my solo. I gotta hit this.
Yeah. I mean, it is stressful and it's just intense. It's intense in every way. It's like the moments of joy are 1,000 times more joyful, and the moments of pain and fear and doubt are 1,000 times more painful and fearful and doubtful.
Who brought in LALAH Hathaway for that? Was it Sput or Sean or
Sput? Yeah, because Sean wasn't on that record. That was Cory was on that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was Sput. Sput said we should get LALAH. She's a friend. Used to play with her a lot. Let me call her. And she was one of only 2 artists that I didn't know personally that came down for that session. I knew pretty much everybody else personally, but and we had actually played Family Dinner gigs with them in New York City at Rockwood.
Yep.
With most of those singers. But he brought in LALAH. She came in the night before, did the rehearsal with us. Hilarious because that song, Something, has a lot of chords in it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of us involved in the arranging of that song, but it was primarily Sput and then also Bill. And then kind of me and Mark Lettieri also, added a bunch of stuff and the horns were throwing in stuff and everybody's kind of self-arranging in a way, but the chord changes came from Sput.
Sput's a great arranger, man. He's incredible.
Yeah, and having Bill there too, I think it just created this really nice kind of balance between the two of them, and so they come up with this beautiful arrangement in E, because I think that's the original key of the song. And LALAH shows up on Thursday night. The band has already rehearsed it, and we play
super technical,
and we play it one time down, and LALAH's like, "You think we could do this down a half step?" And I remember looking at Bill. At this point, we had been in this room for 4 days, rehearsing 18 hours a day, learning 22 songs or something, and arranging them, not just learning them.
Intense songs.
Very intense, very detailed, And in the middle of the session, I think on Tuesday, Maz and I, our trumpet player, who's also a great singer, we flew down to New Orleans to play a corporate gig for Verizon because the week before family dinner, I had about $9,000 in my bank account, and the record was going to cost like 10, and or vice versa. I had 10,000, it was going to cost 9, something like that.
Yeah.
We were like just barely going to make it, and then the next day I woke up and I had like $2,000 in my bank account, and I called the bank and they said, "Oh yeah, sorry, we double deposited one of your checks from your last tour." So we caught it and we canceled the second deposit. So that's like what you have in your bank account is actually what you have. Sorry.
Oh my God.
And I was like, and that day, this is like a week before or a week and a half before the session. That same day, my friend Chris Davis called me and said, "Hey man, this is like a weird question, but I work for Verizon. We're doing like a company party in New Orleans. And we need a band." And they wanted to get like a New Orleans cover band, but I told them, "No, there's this band. They're creative. They're really cool. They do a lot of stuff. I pitched your band and they bought it. And like the gig pays like $17,000 or something. Like, can you come and do it?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yes, please God, that's going to save me. Like I'm doing a record next, whenever. When is the gig?" And he said like, "Oh, next Tuesday." And I was like, "Oh my God, our rehearsals start Monday. We do rehearsals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The artists come in Friday. We record Saturday. We do a concert, and Sunday we go home." Like that was the schedule for family dinner, And I was like,
In New York?
"No, in Virginia."
Oh, in Virginia. Okay.
In Roanoke. So I was like, "But I can't make this record if I don't have the money. So of course I have to do it. So how am I going to leave my own band?" So what we did was we did like a 20-hour rehearsal on Monday or something. On Tuesday, Maz and I flew at like 2 p.m. We rehearsed in the morning, and then we flew out of Roanoke at like 2 p.m. or something. I think. Maybe we didn't rehearse in the morning. I don't remember. I think maybe we just rehearsed on Monday, and then Maz and I, on Tuesday, we flew to New Orleans. I put this all-star band together. Jason Marsalis on cowbell, Nigel Hall on keys and vocals, Danny Abel on guitar. I think I called Gino Eigelhart from Dallas to fly in and play drums, maybe. I just remember, Jason Marsalis was playing cowbell and tambourine. I just we needed like a Marsalis there, so that if everything went south, we'd be like, no, you can't say shit to us. Jason Marsalis is on this band. I think he had a gig before and a gig after, so he just came, picked up a tambourine, played for an hour, and then went on to his next gig.
Very New Orleans.
Very New Orleans. Maz was singing, Nigel was singing, and the band was called Snarky Puppy. It was not at all Snarky Puppy, but we called the band Snarky Puppy because that's what was pitched. No one at Verizon cared anyway. They were deep into their cocktails.
And you were like, Snarky Puppy now makes $17,000.
Yeah, exactly. I wish that set a precedent, but it absolutely did not. So then we did that gig. The next morning, Maz and I got on a 5 or 6 a.m. flight. We land in Roanoke Wednesday at noon or something, with layover, whatever. 11 a.m. noon, we get back. I remember I did the arrangement for Deep in the taxi on the way to the airport from New Orleans. We landed. Sput and Bill had done the arrangement for something on Tuesday while Maz and I were gone. And we came back with like 17 grand. I mean, obviously I paid the people in the band like $1,000 each or something. So we came back with like 11 grand and we needed 10.
Yeah.
Perfect. Maz got something, the rest went towards the record, and we funded the record like that. And then we, flew in Wednesday straight into another like 16-hour rehearsal. And then Thursday, another rehearsal. So all this to say, when Layla asked us if we could play the song down a half step, I looked around the room. I looked at Bill, and Bill was looking at me going, like, "Do not do this to me. Do not do this to me. Do not, like, I just learned 21 songs this week. I've slept like 3 hours a night. do not, for a bass player, it's easy. You know what I mean? You just play one fret down. It's not a big deal. For a keyboard player, it is not easy. And I looked at Bill and I was like, I'm sorry, man. And I told Layla, absolutely, Layla, we can do this in E flat. No problem. Oh, man. Or maybe it was an F and we moved it to E. I don't remember what key it was. Whatever it was, it's down a half step from the key that the arrangement was done in and that it was rehearsed in. And these are the things you forget. People, of course, remember the stuff that's on video. They remember Layla singing the chord. They remember us all freaking out because she didn't do that in the rehearsal at all. And that was the second performance of that song. We did 2 performances of each song for 2 different audiences. We had like 2 sets. And she didn't do it in the first one. So it was just like a thing. And then it became like the thing from that record.
Wow. So yeah, and that's why you guys all reacted like that on camera, because you were all surprised and blown away the way the whole audience was and everyone that ever watches that performance.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And as unbelievable as that is, it's like her level of musicality, not just you can sing I can sing a chord. You know what I mean? I mean, not like that, but I can produce 2. Anyone can, you work on it, you get multiphonics, if you get the right resonance going on. She was improvising with Cory. Those 8-bar sections where it's just like the 2 of them, and then it goes back to the band, and then it goes back to the 2 of them. There was nothing planned. They were just flowing, And he was like, they're moving outside of the key together, and for her to like hear him just play a chord that's outside of the key, then she sings it. Then he plays another one that's outside of the key. Then she sings it. It was like, and with a beautiful tone, not just producing multiple pitches, but like doing it with a beautiful sound.
Yes.
After taking an unbelievable solo that for me reminds me more of Wayne Shorter than Jon Hendricks,
Yes. Well said.
Like,
yeah.
What, people freak out about that moment, as they should, because it's wild, but it's all the stuff around it that makes it so special. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever have this experience where there's a song you love on a record and you listen to the song on its own and it doesn't have the same impact as when you listen to the whole record down and then that song comes on and you just go like, yeah, because it's like the environment is everything. And
yes,
man, she really created environment that night. It's really, I could never buy her enough drinks or dinners to say thank you for being a part of that.
Big shout out to LALAH HATHAWAY and Sput and Cory Henry.
Yeah.
Amazing moment. Yeah, that was what grabbed my attention and was like, oh, this band is incredible. What is going on here? As a drummer, I'm constantly dealing with tight shoulders, forearms, my lower back, and after a long rehearsal, tour, recording session, I love jumping in the sauna pod because it's one of those things that forces me to slow down for 20 or 30 minutes. I come out feeling looser, more relaxed, and I almost always sleep better that night. What really sold me on this one is that it is a true dry heat sauna. It gets up to 185 degrees, which is much closer to a traditional Finnish sauna than most portable options that use steam or infrared. It's made from 100% natural cotton instead of the plastic materials you see in a lot of the other portable saunas. It feels premium, it's comfortable, and it sets up in just a few minutes. If you've been thinking about adding a sauna to your routine, this is a great time. Go to the link in the show notes and use code ELMO at checkout. You'll get the sauna pod for just $499, which is half off the original $999 retail price. That is a sauna for under $500. Thank you so much for supporting the show. 2014, We Like It Here comes out. Lingus hits the world, man. Tell me about composing Lingus.
Yeah, again, this is kind of following the theme of things that we did that we didn't think were particularly special, but then everybody thought were special, so then that just became special. But we're like, oh, okay. I think about the solo that Cory took on Lingus, which is, of course, amazing because Cory's amazing. But, you can ask him. It's like, he took hundreds of solos on that song over the years. And there were solos that were like 100 times better than that amazing solo that he took that became the record, But the right combination of factors were there. Sean reacting in the way that he reacted before like internet reactions were like a thing that people were interested in, you know?
Sure.
Back when reactions weren't done to get attention, you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
when it was just literally a reaction. And then the fact that it was filmed and, you know, Cory's charisma and musicality and, you know, I mean, of course it's undeniable, but people really talk about that moment, like, what was it like being in that moment? I was like, well, to be honest with you, I think the solo he took the night after was better, but but just the band sounded better on this take,
Really?
you know, or like, or whatever, you know. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like people are so quick to kind of sanctify a moment and kind of codify it,
Yeah.
because they don't have the context of everything else. Like, there are only probably 15 people in the world that heard Cory play on Lingus 250 times.
Sure.
The people that are on stage and the people in the crew, right?
Yes.
But for an audience member, it's like you hear it once and you're just like, the greatest keyboard solo ever taken. Greatest one. It's like, not only is that not the greatest keyboard solo ever taken, it wasn't even the best solo that same guy took that week.
Wait, so here's what's funny about this. So the Cory Henry solo on Lingus, Cory was on the podcast and we talked about it, right? And he told me that he did a few versions of the solo that day because you guys did a couple takes or something.
Two sets per day.
Oh yeah, 2 sets per day. And that he said that you were actually the one that chose that solo and that you told him this is going to change your life. And you were right. And he said that it wasn't the solo that he would have picked, but he trusted you. And it worked out. It worked out to the point it changed his whole life. He even named his dog Lingus.
Yeah, she's so cute.
She's so cute.
Yes, if I said that to him, which I might have. I mean, I was delirious from lack of sleep that week, but I've never chosen a take in our video recording sessions. I've never chosen a take solely on what I thought was the best musical performance. It's always a combination of musical performance and like the ghost in the room. Always. Which fortunately, when you have cameras running, the cameras are a very good indicator of the level of the ghost in the room, you know? Whereas when you're listening just with audio, not so much. You don't feel it so much. But I remember that after that solo, after that performance of that song, there was this feeling in the room that wasn't there on the performance that I think Cory and I would both consider to be the superior solo. And I don't know why. You don't know why. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about art. You know, you just, music, whatever. You just don't know why sometimes. It's just a feeling. And I felt it. At the end of that take of that song, I felt like that's it. Again, not my favorite solo that he took on that song in that session. I thought there were others that I liked more. But the overall feeling was like,
yeah,
you know, it was electric. And so it's same with LALAH, you know, it's just like,
yeah,
there's just, that's what I'm going for always when I'm picking takes. I'm not always going for the one that's the tightest, the one that where the melody is played the most correctly, the one where the soloists are most impressive. It's just this overall feeling of like, do I feel something when I'm listening to it? Or when I was there in the room, did I feel something? You know, and I try to remember that. And if I do, that's what I use.
Well, you're really good at identifying those parts, man. It's always captured.
Thank you. And I didn't answer your question about the composition process, but maybe it's less interesting than what we just talked about. So,
well, I mean, like you're composing for these huge ensembles, and there's so many incredible personalities and flavors of sound in each person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. And I bear that in mind, of course, when I'm writing. But I mean, Lingus, the composition process was funny because at that time, we were not selling very many tickets and we were constantly on tour in the US playing for 20, 30, 40, 50 people while the club next door had a line around the block to see a dubstep DJ. Always. It was like everywhere we went, there was a dubstep DJ that sold 2,000 tickets and we sold 2, you know? And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to write a dubstep song. I'm going to write a dubstep song for Snarky Puppy. And so I had this kind of thing in my mind as a joke for it. And I got on a plane to fly to start a European tour that year. And And I ended up in the worst seat on the flight. I was next to this guy from like, I think he was from Manchester, from somewhere in the UK. Got on the plane, trashed. Like 9-hour flight from New York to Shannon, Ireland on Aer Lingus or something, you know? And I'm in the window, he's in the aisle, and he gets on and he's really chatty, you know? And I'm like, this is going to be a long one. You know, he just smells like a bar. It was really terrible. I think actually the flight was maybe New Orleans to Shannon, Ireland. So it was extra long and he was extra sauced. And after like an hour, he goes to the bathroom. I remember actually before he went to the bathroom, the flight attendant came down and said, "Would you like anything to drink?" And he's like, "I'll have a beer, you know." And then I said like, "No, I'm okay, thanks." He said, No, he's going to have a beer too. He'll have a beer too. You know? And I was like, "I don't want to." He's like, "Yeah, 2 beers. It's fine." You know? So she came with 2 beers and he just cracked them both open, smashed them. I remember waking up, taking a nap and waking up, and there was just a pile of beer cans on the floor at my feet. He would just been crushed. I don't know how they kept serving him. And then he's really chatty. It's like couple hours into the flight. So I wake up, he's really super chatty. I'm like, oh man. You know, he gets up, goes to the bathroom, comes back. As he's in the bathroom, I quickly put my headphones on, get my laptop out, get my MIDI controller. I just try to get look as busy as possible to get this guy to stop talking to me. He sits down. I'm working, opening a Logic session. He's still talking to me. And I just started kind of banging on the keyboard just to like make myself look even busier, you know? Yeah. And I just started banging like, just in one voicing. And I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool, actually. Like, what meter is that in? Like, is that in 4? Oh, it's not in 4, it's in 5. That's interesting. And then now I've like tuned out his talking, and he's kind of gone back to doing his thing. And I thought like, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, that's kind of dubstep tempo. Maybe this is my dubstep song in 5. That's funny. That's kind of like a joke. Like, how can I kind of make a joke about this? And then, yeah, so then I just thought, like, and then of course I was thinking of it as dubstep, but then once human beings started playing it, it just became Snarky Puppy, but that was the kind of idea behind the song, was to like, dubstep's famous, Snarky Puppy's not famous. Maybe if we write a dubstep song, we'll be famous.
Unbelievable.
And it kind of worked. I mean, we're not famous. It didn't make us famous, but it was definitely the most successful thing. But it was it was the most, I mean, in our little dark, dusty corner of the music world, we're doing okay.
Bro, there's 5 Grammys sitting on a dusty shelf behind you. You're kind of famous.
Yeah, but one is because of LALAH.
Fair.
Anyway.
That leaves 4, Michael.
We'll figure that out later. But yeah.
What's really funny? What's ironic is at that time, I was drumming with SKRILLEX. SKRILLEX and I had a drum and DJ duo.
Out of here, really?
Yeah. And he was selling tons of tickets. We were playing huge shows at that time. Some of my most fun shows I've ever played, man, because it was just me and him.
I hated him so much without ever listening to a single note of his music, just incredible, because of the crowds. Just because everywhere we went, it was like SKRILLEX or like Pretty Lights or whatever. And it was just, the crowds were so massive and we couldn't do anything to sell tickets. And then I actually listened to SKRILLEX like 6 years later and I was like, this guy's amazing.
He's amazing, man. He's amazing. I mean, obviously his sound design is on like the highest of levels.
Crazy,
but he's also an incredible musician. Like he plays guitar, amazing songwriter, just sits in his laptop all day, every day making music.
No, I mean, you can tell when you hear it. I mean, yeah. It was just, I was just bitter. I was really bitter.
No, I understand.
And I blame you, Elmo.
It's my fault. You know what? If anything, like I gave SKRILLEX his first show. I was throwing this weekly art and music night in LA, and the first SKRILLEX show was there. And he was, it's so funny. He's like a little brother to me, and I knew him from before that because we were in punk rock bands, like playing on the Warped Tour together
Wow.
before he was
Amazing.
SKRILLEX. He was in a band called From First to Last. And it's so funny. I didn't think we'd be talking about SKRILLEX in the Michael League interview. But I remember one year, man, I brought him with me to Coachella, and he stayed on my floor in my hotel room. He slept right next to me on the floor. And just to give you an example of how fast the meteoric rise was, the very next year he headlined Coachella. And he literally was just with me on the floor in my hotel the year before at Coachella.
Yeah.
Like it was incredible how fast his rise was.
Wow.
But it was just right place, right time, and his music was just so undeniable and the right energy. But what was great when he asked me to drum with him was because I got to pull like the metal and the even more like musicality out of it. It was so much fun. But anyways, so I would love to talk about Larnell Lewis, because the first time I saw Larnell Lewis play was in that Lingus video. And oh my God.
Yeah, Larnell's so special.
And what a sweetheart of a guy. He was on the pod too. I love Larnell. What a human being.
Yeah. Sounds like you had my whole band on.
You know, I didn't want to get you on until I went entirely around
What am I,
you,
chopped
my
liver,
friend.
Elmo?
Yeah, entirely. You're too far. You know, that's why I had Antonio Sanchez on. It was the first little entry to Spain. And then,
I'm kidding. Yeah, no, Larnell's amazing. I mean, we're so blessed with great drummers, you know. And I mean, now we have 4. Now we've added Nikki Glaspie. So we have
Nikki's amazing.
Jason JT Thomas, Jameson Ross, and Larnell. And they all, no one of them sounds like any other of them. And I love that so much. It's just so, they're so distinct as musical voices, and they all have different strengths, you know. I mean, they all have like, you know, a million strengths, but I'm saying like the things that are most stand out about each of them are different things, you know. And I really love that. I love that we don't have 2 drummers that are similar, but one kind of sounds better or something, you know. It's like all 4 of them are so different. And, you know, Larnell has, you know, he's so expressive, he's so explosive, he's so interactive and creative, and such an incredibly attentive listener, you know. I mean, really, he hears everything, as all of our drummers do. But yeah, I mean, he's just, yeah, what can you say? I mean, you can't say enough nice things about the guy. And as a human being, he's just, you know, 1 in a million, you know, just the best, really.
He's absolutely the best. I know. I'll just ask it now. We haven't gotten yet to the new SOMNI album, but just since you had mentioned the 4 drummers on that album, so you have Larnell Lewis, Nikki Glaspie, Jason JT Thomas, and Jameson Ross, all set up next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there's specifically one song, if anyone hasn't heard this or watched this video specifically, go and listen to Recurrent on that album. And the 4 of them trading solos, but they do something that I've never actually seen done before. When they're trading their solo pieces, they're like handing it off with a groove. Like each person starts a certain groove and then hands it, they pick up on it, and then that's how then they go into their solo and then take a piece and then transition out to the next drummer. So damn cool. One of the coolest trading 4s, even though it's not 4s, trading of drummers I've ever seen. Like, was that them on their own kind of putting that together, or is that a vision of yours? How does that happen?
Yeah, it was an idea that I proposed to them based on the concept of an Indian tea high, which is when Carnatic musicians are, well, I'll just say when Indian classical musicians are performing a solo, it's very common that at the end of their solo, or at the end of one of their phrases, they'll play an identical small phrase 3 times in a row. And the last beat of that 3rd phrase will land either directly on or just before the downbeat of the next 8-bar phrase. So if you're like at this tempo, you know, it could be like a gada gada 1 will be the beginning of the next phrase, or gada 1, right? So it's a really beautiful, elegant, also like highly mathematical way to conclude a solo. And I've always been really fascinated by the different tactics and techniques that different forms of music around the world employ to communicate ultimately the same thing, which is human emotion through sound. And it's like incredible that we have so many different perspectives on that, you know? And I love just taking a tactic or an idea from a culture and kind of adapting it or morphing it or putting it in different clothes, and using it in a way that is specific to what I'm doing as a producer or what we're doing as a band in Snarky Puppy's case or something. And so I talked to them about this concept of the T-high, and I was saying, I don't want us to end with T-highs because it's such an Indian thing. The second that we do that, it's going to not be Snarky Puppy. But let's take an idea, the idea of the T-high, and let's apply it to trading, and let's modify it a little bit. So my original idea was that we would keep the threeness of the T-high, but that basically what would happen is that when a drummer was finishing their solo, they would play a phrase twice, and then the next drummer would play that phrase once to begin their solo. So Larnell would play digga 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 and then the next drummer would play digga digga to start their solo, and that would launch them in a way that also prevents the improviser from coming in with a plan, which I love. You know, because think about it, you got 15, 12 cameras, you're in a room with 300 people, you know that this thing is going to live online for all eternity.
A lot of pressure.
You're going to put some pressure on yourself to play a great solo, and the temptation is to plan something out. Not that our drummers would do that, but maybe to just go in with a slight preconception. But if you have this thing of, I must begin my solo with whatever the last drummer finishes their solo with, it's impossible to have a plan. So you really have to be in the moment. And this was the initial idea, and we practiced it, just the four of them and me, like in a sectional rehearsal that week, and it was really cool. But it was such a foreign concept that like it took a second to develop. But sometimes the not so precise execution of the idea led to more interesting results. So then we just said, okay, it doesn't have to be the same exact phrase played twice and then started exactly by the next person. It just kind of has to be an idea that propels the next soloist into the beginning of their solo. So it kind of like became a little bit looser, but it's coming from an Indian T-high. That's like that was the inspiration.
But to put it into this context is so cool, man. I'd never seen that done before.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. You know, again, it's like the thing with Snarky Puppy, you know, doing our albums with a video in studio with an audience. Again, it's not like this massive burst of inspiration that like I woke up with and I thought like, this is going to change. It's just a variation of, a variation on a variation on a variation of something. You know, it's not rocket science. It's just kind of like, I think it's just, we're all, as musicians, and human beings, we're just like so quick to do some shit that just has already been done. Like, oh, okay, vamp, drum solos, hey, let's trade. What do you want to do? Trade 2s, 4s, 8s, 16s? Yeah, okay, great, 16s. Let's trade. You know, it's just, of course, that's just the logical, easy thing. It works, you know, it's going to be cool. But it's like, if you just take, you know, an extra 12 seconds to think about what you can do to make it special or different. Or tonight when you cook dinner, what can I do to make the burger that I'm making for dinner slightly different? I'm going to put feta into it instead of American cheese on it. But if you put feta in the burger, you're not going to want to eat that with ketchup, right? Maybe you're going to want like a yogurty dill kind of sauce. Oh, and that's going to tell you, oh, maybe that's going to be better with this kind of bread. And then, oh, that bread needs to be toasted for it to be, you know. And then all of a sudden, this like one tiny decision of let's throw some feta into the burger maybe creates this whole new way of making a burger. And then all of the things about the burger are different. Where it almost doesn't even resemble a burger anymore. And I think that's kind of what I've always tried to do in music, you know, is just change one little thing and then pay attention to what that one little thing tells you to do next, and then go down the chain. And then soon you don't even remember what the original inspiration was or the original thing that you were stealing from was, which in many cases, that's what I do when I compose. I just pick something, I steal it, I modify it, and then I use that modification as the basis for all the millions of steps that come next.
Oh my God. The feta that you gave those drummers, bro, it was so great. Like,
Well, but they also know how to make a burger, you know what I mean? So I can't take
for sure.
I can't take credit for the feta.
They each have their own perfect cast iron skillet that has years
That's
of
right.
flavor.
Seasoning, that's right. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that sounds. Just the thought of how to make a burger and thinking in the Michael League way does sound quite stressful to me. Honestly, I think.
To me, what sounds stressful is first off copyright infringement, and second off, what sounds stressful is doing something that I've heard 100,000 times before, probably not as well as it's been done. Like that's stressful to me. So I think it's worth taking the extra time to like try to cook up new ways of packaging something, and then spend less time stressing out on the back end.
This is why you get so into doing your laundry and won't go to Sicily with Stevie Wonder.
There you go.
Wherever you were going. Man, it's amazing. Dude, you have such an eye for talent, like to say the least. Like everyone in Snarky Puppy, I mean, Mark Lettieri, Bill Laurence, Larnell, Cory Henry, Sput, like the list goes on and on. And Snarky even put Jacob Collier on early, like before Quincy signed Jacob Collier.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet Jacob back then?
I have a friend, a bass player from Paris named Sabrina Boudaoud, and she sent me a video of his when he was like 16 or something. It was a song written, it was a setting of the Robert Frost poem, The Road Less Taken, The Road Less Traveled. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, that poem. And he set it to music very beautifully, did the harmony thing and all this stuff. And she was like, you have to check this British kid out. He's like amazing, you know? And I watched the video, and so I sent him a message and I said, hey, this video is incredible. Like if you ever need a producer or want to write together or whatever, you know, or need a label home or whatever, just let me know. And he wrote me right back. It's on Facebook, I think. And he wrote me right back and he said, oh, thank you. You know, I love your band and I would love to work together. But you know, I already kind of made this deal with Quincy Jones that when I'm ready to make my first record, that he's going to produce it and he's going to release it and all this kind of stuff. So, and I was like, wait, first off, you already know Quincy Jones. Second off, Quincy Jones just offered you a record deal and to produce for you. And you said, give me a few years to get my shit together. Like, what are you?
16?
You are so mature. Like, what? I would just be like, I'm flying to LA right now, you know? You know, so he already had his brain very, very developed, you know, from the time that I texted him. But we stayed in touch, and then when we did Family Dinner Volume 2, still before he had made that record, I believe, I asked him to be a part of it, and he joined, and it was super fun, and you know, he brought the harmonizer thing, that crazy thing, and it was a blast. I'm curious. I mean, I'm always trying to check out. I'm curious. You know, I want to know who's doing what, especially new and fresh things.
Yeah, Quincy introduced Jacob and I in like 2018, I want to say. And you met him, God, it must have been like 2014 or something.
I think earlier maybe, or
13. It's very old in these young Jacob Collier years. But yeah, I remember the first time I saw him was incredible. He was the first person and the only person to ever play the Jam Jam solo. There's always huge ensembles.
Did he do the thing where he ran around to the different instruments?
No, he did the thing. So we did that later. We did like the Jacob Collier Jam Jam in like 2022 or something. We had a huge band. Dude, the band that we built together, it was Jacob being Jacob. On guitar, we had Steve Vai. We had Mono Neon on bass.
This is already the weirdest band of all time.
It was super weird. We had Eric Moore and Sarah Thawer on drums. We had 16-year-old Justin Lee Schultz on keys. And we had JoJo and T-Pain singing.
Weirdest band in history. Least obvious band in history.
And you know what's really funny?
I'm
Justin
watching
Lee
that
Schultz,
as soon as we hang this up. I'm watching that.
I'll send it to you, man. I'll send it to you. And what's really funny is Justin Lee Schultz was like 16 at the time. He didn't know who Steve Vai was.
Incredible.
So he like went up to Steve Vai and like on stage and like picked up the guitar because he was playing keys and picked up the guitar and went to like challenge Steve Vai to like dual solo. And he just did it, man, confidently, and he crushed it. It was unbelievable.
I mean, but also Jacob at 16 was very confident. You know, I mean,
he
not in any way overly confident, but just very like, yeah, I mean, Quincy sounded me out. We're going to do this thing together. Very polite, very sweet, you know. And I remember once the COVID Grammys 2021 or something, I remember we did like this big Zoom call with like 20 of us, like Snarky Puppy people, GroundUP people, you know, friends of ours who were nominated. Jacob was there and we were all on the call together, having a drink together or whatever.
Yeah.
On Zoom before. And then after the ceremony, he texted me and said, "Can I call you?" You know? And I was like, yeah, of course. Because every once in a while he'll call me and ask for like recommendations for musicians, like for people to sing with his band or whatever. And he called me and he said, "Dude, if you were me, what would you do right now?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, what would you do if you were me? And like, sky's the limit. Nothing and no one is off limits. Just like, think about it that way. You know? And I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever thought that way. You know? Like, I don't think I've ever thought in such a liberated way. There's always something I want to do. And I'm like, oh, I'd really love to do that. Okay. That's a little unrealistic, but maybe not impossible. How do I make that happen? I have to make these compromises, these sacrifices, and then maybe that's possible. I've never started from the perspective of like, imagine I can do anything. Now, how do I get that thing done? You know? And I think it's just evidence of how open he's always been to the sea of possibility, you know? And also that he just felt like in that moment, again, like confident, but not overly confident, like, okay, you know. And what I told him was like, I was like, man, if I were you, you know everything you need to know about music theory. You know 10 times more about music theory than you need to know. You're good. You don't ever need to study music theory ever again for the rest of your life. You know, you play a million instruments. You know, if I were you, I'd call Neil Young and I'd ask him if I could go to his house for 3 months and do his laundry and wash his dishes and just hang out with him and maybe watch him write a few songs. And like, that's what I would do, because you've got all the other stuff going on. You know what I mean? But maybe Neil Young's like the other direction, you know, of like a guy that can write lyrics and in 5 words say more than I've said my entire life of lyric writing. You know, a guy who puts more truth in a chord progression with 2 chords or 3 chords than I've ever done in a Snarky Puppy song with 200, you know? And it's like, so, and he was like, oh, that's great advice. I think I'll call him, you know? And I was just like, do you know him? And he's like, no, but I'll call him, you know? And I was like, yeah, okay. There is no doubt why this guy is and will always be successful. You know, all the talent, all the ability, all the knowledge, but also this fearlessness, you know, and confidence of like, there's this thing that I want and I'm going to go get it. Like,
wow.
You know, and I don't think he ever did hang out with Neil Young. I think he would have told me if he did. But like, but just that idea of just feeling like sky's the limit. It's incredible. You know, it's really inspiring.
Well, man, next time you're in Los Angeles, you're going to call me. We're going to play tennis, and Neil Young lives a block away from me.
That would be 2 of my favorite things in the world in the same day.
Oh, me and tennis?
You and tennis.
Okay, awesome.
What's the name of the guy that lives next to you?
Neil. He's a nice older guy, but really talented. Yeah.
He might be onto something. He might have a career ahead of him.
Yeah, you got something, kid. Don't give up. Man, can we talk about the operation that is Snarky Puppy? Like, how do you run that ship, you being the CEO?
Yeah, great team. I mean, there's no way I'd be able to hold it together. I had to hold it together for the first kind of decade because there was no one else that was stupid enough to work with us. But then we found our manager, Mike Chadwick, who I guess in that moment was stupid enough to work with us. And no, he's the best and saved my life. And for sure, he and Sue Hanley, who work together as our management and our wonderful agents and our production team and our crew. And, without that group of people, there's no way I'd be able to hold it together, So I would just say a great team. That's how it is held together. Great team. I try to be nice to everybody. I try to treat everyone with a lot of respect and also understanding that my band is not what they go to sleep thinking about every night, like as, their ideal vision for what their life is. Like they have their own projects, they have their own dreams and their own visions. And I think I bear that in mind and I respect that. And, I think that's kind of maybe the biggest part of the longevity in the band is just treating people well and trying to be consistent in that. And also making decisions that you really believe are in the best interest of the whole and not just in the best interest of yourself.
Yeah, nice.
Or also there's the temptation of making decisions that are in the best interest of maybe the person that complains the most in your band to get them off your back, which sounds like a generous act because you're not considering yourself, you're considering them over you, but you're also considering them over the rest of the band,
yes,
which makes it not generous.
Right.
So I think not everybody agrees with me 100% of the time. I mean, I'm sure that's the case, but I would like to believe that everyone in the band believes that every decision I make is made in the best interest of the group.
How do you manage everyone's egos and personalities?
I mean, fortunately, Snarky Puppy is a band in which there are not a lot of egos. And if there are some, I think those people understand that when they walk in the door, the ego can't come in with them because there's just not enough space for it. It's too big of an organization. It's too agile. We have to get way too much done in way too little time, always. There's just no space for it. I think they also know that there are other people. Everyone in the band knows that there are other people that play their instrument in the band that play at the same level or higher than them. So like if you come in and cause problems, it's really easy to just have someone else who already knows all the music and a lot of experience playing in the band come in and fill in for you. So, maybe that lack of job security in a way is like inspiring for people to be more humble, Sure. And I think that's like kind of looking at it from the negative side. From the positive side, I think everybody has a lot of respect for everyone else in the band, especially the people on their instruments. I think Chris McQueen and Bob Lanzetti have a lot of respect for Mark. I think Mark has a lot of respect for Chris and Bob. It's like, I know that's the case. So, how do I manage the egos? I think I just don't give any oxygen to it.
Yeah.
I don't allow any space for people to come in with the stuff. And I have to lead by example. If I'm being egocentric, it kind of tacitly gives permission for other people to be the same, just not as much as me, but they can involve it. But if I'm doing my best to be selfless and generous and considerate of the general good,
yeah,
then I think people feel awkward. It's weird for like a saxophone player or something to like exert their ego more than the band leader. I think it just feels funny. It feels awkward, So I think, I guess that starts at the top. I try, I don't think I always succeed, but I try.
Is that why when you're not doing Snarky Puppy, you're like, let me do a duo with Bill Laurence? Let
me tell you, I have no complaints about going on tour with one other human being. You know what I mean? And Bill is a particularly lovely human being to be on tour with. But even if he weren't, I think I would still really enjoy it. It's really nice to get a break from being with
A
24
lot less
people.
logistics, a lot less hotel rooms,
For
a lot
sure.
less flights.
Yes,
Less,
a lot less everything.
man, balancing a band is hard. And your band is huge,
Correct.
which makes it even harder. So how do you make it work, man? How do you split the financials? Like, how do you find a fair way to do that?
Yeah, I think we've been kind of smart and calculating from the beginning in terms of, well, not from the beginning. It was a mess in the beginning. I would say once we got management, our manager, Mike Chadwick, has been very smart in terms of making sure that pay raises are incremental, annual, not too much, so you don't risk having a bad year and then having to like lower salaries or, and I think ultimately it's like keeping a band together is about making people happy and making them feel good. And they can get their happiness from a lot of different places. They can get it from their paycheck. They can get it from feeling liberated on stage, like feeling like they can play what they want when they feel that they want to. They can get that from staying in decent hotels and not playing gigs that are too long and having decent food and being in the company of really nice people who are a joy to be around. And, I think with Snarky Puppy, we try to do all those things. We don't do any of them at the top level. We're not staying in 5 stars. They're not making $4,000 a gig, but we're doing the best that we can in every direction. And I think people know that. And I think also, of course, when you're playing in someone else's band, you're always going to have these moments of like, why am I doing this? Is it worth it? But I think when the people in the band look around and they see the other bands in our genre, I think they notice that there is a real effort being made to make their experience as positive as possible. And I think that there's nothing also that anyone in the band would be scared to say to me, which is not the case in bands like Prince's band or something, what I mean, where you weren't even allowed to talk to him really, I think
you have an open door
100%. And they know I'll consider it. Then they know absolutely that I'll consider anything that they say, and so I think knowing that you're being heard by the band leader, knowing that the organization is designed to treat people with respect, I think those things go a long way in terms of making people happy. And also knowing that if someone in the band wants to take 9 months off or 2 years and 9 months off and go do something else and come back, the chair's still going to be waiting for them,
Yes.
And they're not going to be punished for that. There's not going to be any like jealousy or guilting happening, So I think it's just all about keeping people happy so that they're inspired to express themselves.
It's crazy, man. You run a team. You're like the head coach of a team.
I think about it that way. And like I said, I grew up more with sports than music. So I really think about it like that. Yeah. And also I think about that when I'm choosing set lists or who's going to take solos. I think about it like a basketball coach, like who's going to hit this shot? We need this shot. Who's going to hit that shot? But also not playing hero ball, not being like, okay, well, we've got this one player that always hits a home run, so let's have them take every at bat, which of course is not allowed in baseball, but were it allowed, it is allowed in music, so it's like, let's not do that. Let's figure out a way to get the people that need more at bats up at the plate more, or whatever. And I do look at it like a team, 100%.
Okay, so 2015 Family Dinner Volume 2 is done, as well as Silva, the collaboration with the Metropole Orchestra and Jules Buckley. In 2016, you win your second Grammy. Silva wins Best Contemporary Instrumental Album. Which Grammy is which, by the way, back there?
I don't know. I don't look at them.
You got like a friend's Grammy. He didn't even realize. Oh, shit, he took mine. He's using my Pro Tools license and he took my Grammy. Trades?
Yeah, actually, those are just they're little things I made out of cardboard and painted. They're not even real.
It's a Zoom background.
It's a Zoom background, yeah.
Man, okay, so also in 2016, GroundUP leaves Rope-A-Dope. You go fully independent. You broker a distro deal with Universal.
Yeah.
Where did you get these business chops from?
I wouldn't say that I have business chops. I mean, I just, you just screw up once and then you say, I don't want to screw up in that exact same way again. And then you try not to, I mean, I mean, in the early days of the band, the first decade, basically, we were just so unattractive to everyone, to every festival, to every club, to every audience, So it was like I just had a lot of time to try a million different things to see what worked and to kind of like work in a bit of like an incubator for a while, we didn't have the pressure that someone like Jacob or Dirty Loops had, when Dirty Loops made their first album, they were already viral on YouTube. So everyone's waiting for the record, and we never had that pressure. By the time anyone had heard of us, we'd already released like 7 albums. You know what I mean? So it was like, and played God knows how many hundreds of gigs at that point. So, I'm grateful for that, actually. I'm grateful that we didn't come up in the kind of like internet generation in a way. You know what I mean? I mean, we did, but not in like the social media generation.
Right.
The band, the band was already like, I don't know, 6 years old by the time we got our first social media, I think. So, I think maybe the more interesting answer to your question about business is that I don't really look at business as business. I don't look at it as like, okay, what are my business skills? The same way that I don't look at music as like music theory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like music theory is the thing that you use later to explain why something that you felt and played sounded good, right? Music theory is not the map. It's the explanation for afterwards, And so I think my business approach has always been that way, that it's like, I'm just trying to find solutions to problems. And then when I find the solution, people call that good music business. But I'm not going into it thinking, what's the best music business thing here? A club owner wants to pay us nothing. I want them to pay us a lot. How do I figure out a way for them to pay us something that they're not resentful, at us for, at us about, but also something that, that makes sense for both people, both parties. How can we both be happy? How can we ensure that there will be a future here? I think it's just really, mostly it all just comes down to kind of like trying to make people feel good about being on Earth, and also trying to do something you believe in artistically.
Yeah.
Which normally those things kind of go hand in hand. We think that if we do something that we don't believe in, we think that if we do something that we think people want, that will actually make them happier. But it's absolutely not the case. People want to be a part of new, interesting, genuine things. They just sometimes need to experience it to know that that's what they want. Like, how many times you've been in a restaurant with someone and they're like, yeah, I'll just get the cheeseburger, and you're like, they have this really special dish here, you should try it. And they're like, oh, yeah, I mean, it looks a little weird, I'll try it. And then they eat it. And then from then on, that's what they order there, and they love it. It's like, sometimes you just have to kind of like feed the thing to people before they realize that they have a taste for it. And I feel like I've taken the same approach with the business side of it as I have with the musical side. It's like, let's just, rather than thinking of what does one normally do in this situation, let's just think about what the problem is, what an ideal solution would be, and then figure out a way to make that work.
It's beautiful. It's a hard puzzle to put together and figure out how to cover overhead, and make enough revenue and run it as a business, because you can't avoid that, or else Snarky Puppy and your projects don't run. Like, you don't run without all the boring stuff, all the logistics and all that stuff. It can't just be music and that's it. You have to do the not fun, pain in the ass, hard shit, and put in that time and figure it out, or else you don't get the luxury of getting to play this wonderful music in front of all these great people, with all these great people.
Yeah, and I think that maybe thinking about it more, one of the main things that ensured our survival was kind of like a lack of entitlement, because I talk with artists now, some my age, mostly younger, that I get a feeling that like there's this kind of idea that because I'm good at what I do, I deserve to just do that thing and be appreciated for it and make a living doing it. And I think that maybe it's a little more dominant in younger musicians because they came up with the opportunity to get instant feedback.
Yeah.
Like you learn a song, you write a song at 7 p.m. At 7:01, you've posted it. At 7:02, you have people telling you it's the greatest song ever written. My generation didn't come up with that.
Or it sucks.
Or that it sucks. Right. My generation didn't come up with that. The way that we got our music out was the radio. Like they're going to play our music on the radio. Festivals, like they're going to book us. TV, not a chance. The only way we could do it was by just driving around in a van and playing gigs for people in bars, And so I think that because I never had that feeling of I deserve to be listened to and I deserve to be paid for what I do because my thing has value, I think I went to real extremes to fund the band so that it would survive. We would come off tour,
Yeah.
I would lose a bunch of money, and then I would play 3 church gigs every Sunday. I'd play at least 1 gig per day the other 6 days of the week. I'd play bar mitzvahs, I'd play weddings, I'd play Frank Sinatra impersonator gigs, I'd play in a Jamaican restaurant. Like I just did anything that would make money. I taught little kids, whatever. I subbed in the circus. Whatever, you know what I mean? And I think that without doing those gigs, I couldn't, then have afforded to go back out on tour and lose a bunch of money. I needed money to lose in order to lose it, and that's how I made it. So I think feeling like we didn't deserve anything, feeling like we weren't owed anything by the world, maybe also played a key role in the survival of the band.
And on top of all that, you're now becoming a producer outside of just you and the band, right? Like in 2016, you produced David Crosby's Lighthouse
Mm-hmm.
and become his musical director of the Crosby Lighthouse Band with Becca Stevens and Michelle Willis. You also at the same time record Culture Vulture.
Family Dinner too.
How did you meet David Crosby and how special was that for you?
I met Dave. I mean, I grew up listening to David. My family was the kind of family that listened to CSN on Christmas instead of Christmas carols. You know what I mean? And like
Christmas stills in Nash.
That's right. Yeah. Or like, Zappa on Easter, So
great family.
Yeah. Weird. Yeah. Yeah. Especially considering my dad was military. He's like, what? It doesn't really add up. But I mean, David came on. Basically, the way that I hooked up with David is that he started tweeting our videos relentlessly.
No way.
Just out of the blue one day, David Crosby on Twitter just discovered this band, new favorite band. Check this song out. 4 minutes later, this song's even cooler. Blah, blah, blah.
No way.
Next, like 5 minutes after that, Stephen Stills wished he played guitar as well as he really said some. Crosby said some very controversy. We were like, please don't say that. Yeah, right. Just using us, like weaponizing us as a form of talking shit about his band members, ex-band members. No, but it would really, he said some really funny things that we were just like, oh, please don't say that, David. And he did it for like 3 or 4 days in a row. And then finally my aunt was like, you should just call him. And I was like, you don't just, what am I going to pick up the local yellow pages and look up David Crosby and call? But she was like, oh, but you can't write him somehow? And I was like, I mean, I could write him on Twitter, but he's probably not going to respond. He's probably got 1 million messages in there. And I wrote him on Twitter like, hey, David, this is Michael Lee from Snarky Puppy. Thanks so much for being, for supporting us. If you'd like to talk sometime, this is my phone number, And I was in Singapore, I remember. And then like an hour later, I got a message on Twitter from Crosby like, hey, it's Cros, here's my number, call me. And I was just like, okay, David Crosby. And I called him and we talked for an hour about nothing. We just basically talked shit for an hour. Talked about music, talked about Joni, being the greatest songwriter ever, whatever, And then at the end of the conversation, I was like, David, I didn't call you specifically for this, but I feel like if this might be my only chance to ask you. And before I could even ask him anything, he just said like, yes. And I was like, what do you mean yes? And he's like, I know what you're going to ask me. You want to like do something with Snarky Puppy and me, like a record or something. Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. And I was like, yeah, I was going to ask you if you want to be a guest on Family Dinner Volume 2, because we're going to do it in a couple months, you know? And he's like, yeah, I already told you, yes. Like, I'm in, you know? And I was like, wow, that was really easy, you know? And so he came to Family Dinner, we met, did this thing. He was so into the band that he asked everyone and paid them all to stay one extra day in New Orleans and record 2 songs for his next record. And then he and I became very close. And then he asked if I would be interested in producing an album for him. And that was Lighthouse, the record, which is basically just me and him. There's like a couple appearances, like I think Bill Laurance plays on 1 or 2 songs. Cory Henry plays on 1 or 2 songs. But it's really just me and him, basically, singing and playing. And I recommended that on the last song of the album that we include Michelle Willis and Becca Stevens, who he met and totally fell in love with at Family Dinner Volume 2 in New Orleans, to sing on that song. They sang, he loved it. And then, you know, he said, we got to tour this record. And I was like, hear me out. I know you've probably had enough of 4-piece bands where everybody sings, but what do you think about the new CSNY being me, you, Becca, and Michelle? You know, and I was like, before you say no, I'll take all the top voices, so you still get all the that sound of the male voice being on top. We'll put the girls in the middle and you on the bottom. You know, they can play a variety of different instruments. They're super versatile, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he was super into it. And so we toured as that band, and then we made another record as that band, toured it again. And then we made a last record with that band with Aaron Sterling on drums, one of the greatest session drummers in the world. That has not come out yet.
Really?
Yeah, it's done. It's done. I mean, I could send you the record right now. I will not.
I could listen to it. I could.
Crazy.
Whoa.
It's been held up.
Oh, man.
It's been held up. We made it exactly 1 year before he passed.
Wow, man.
And it's gotten held up. And we're doing everything we can to loose it. But it's so beautiful. It's like 10 times. I like it 10 times more than either of the records that we did.
Wow, man.
You know, before. It's really special. So we're hoping that it comes out at some point.
I hope it comes out too. Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's going to. I hope it comes out sooner than later.
Me too.
You've gone through some real unfortunate losses. A lot of these amazing musicians who you're really close to, of course, David Crosby, Sean Martin, Bernard Wright, rest in peace to everybody. How do you handle loss?
I think better than most. I lost a close friend when I would have been in 8th grade. She was in 9th grade. A girl that I was like one of the first girls that I was ever like really in love with, you know?
Yeah.
She moved, and like a week or a month, within a month of moving to Japan, actually, I think her dad was in the military. She had a stroke.
Oh my God.
While doing her homework.
What?
You know, and yeah, crazy. And passed, and you know, yeah, like I said, I was pretty young. I mean, of course, I lost my grandfather before that, and like the kind of stuff that you expect, but you don't expect a 14-year-old, you know, to go like that. And I think that had maybe a bigger impact on me than I gave it credit for, and yeah, and my best friend's dad died in a plane crash in an air show. A B-52 went down in Spokane, Washington in the 90s. That was even before.
He was a pilot?
He was a pilot, yeah. And I think this co-pilot got too fancy with one of the maneuvers in the air show, and the plane went down. And this is a family that we spent almost every day with on base, you know, in Alabama, and they just moved to Washington, and So there were a couple stories like that where like very young, I lost people that weren't supposed to go, like a great uncle who was 80 or a grandfather who was 75, where you're kind of like, okay, they're sick. And
Yeah.
so maybe those things prepared me a little more. But I think about death every day, really. I don't think a single day goes by where I don't remind myself that I will die and that everyone I know will die. You know, and that everyone on this earth right now, 150 years ago, will be dead. 150 years from now will be dead. You know, and I think that it's easy to hear that and be like, oh, that's so morbid. It's life. That is what is going to happen. And I've never been a fan of ignoring truth to kind of get through something or to make things a little rosier. It's like, if that is the truth, I want to engage with the truth. And I want to let the truth govern my decisions and my philosophy and my perspective. And so I try to really be mindful of that and above all, just use it as a mechanism to make sure that I don't spend my time in a way that I'm going to regret later, you know? But can you ever really mentally fortify yourself to lose people that you really love? No, you know, I lost my 30-year-old cousin in the avalanche in Lake Tahoe a couple months ago.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was awful for our family, and he was married 3 months. You know, it was just terrible. And I think that one, that one hit me in like a different way than even people like Sean and Bernard and Eric Hartman, our engineer, you know, before Nick, and Crosby, and these people that I saw like all the time, where I felt their loss more, you know, I felt their absence more. My cousin, I didn't see so much. But it did hit me in like a different way. And I think you can never really be prepared for it. But, I think I think about it so much that I think it doesn't like destabilize me in the way that I think it destabilizes a lot of people. I think because I try my best. It's impossible to be like this 100% of the time, but I try my best to just be aware of how temporal all of this stuff is.
Wow.
You know, and it's not, like I said, it's not like I'm there 100% of the time. You know, I'd be like a Buddha if I were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to not spend time doing things that I don't care about. I try to not spend time with people that I don't feel strongly about. And
do you know who Sadhguru is?
No.
Sadhguru, he's like a very famous yogi, mystic. He's like one of the most followed spiritual leaders.
Okay.
Anyways, really amazing guy, but I got to hang out with him a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me, he's Indian, and was telling me how him and how he looks at death and everything as it's not death, it's just like the end of this life, and how the only thing that we all are is time and energy, and everyone has a certain amount of time and a certain amount of energy, and it's different for every single person. And when it ends, it's just that this part is over, and it's nothing to be tragically upset about in his perspective. And he was also saying how he was like, we don't even know. He's like, we're told that heaven is next, but we don't actually know. Who's to say that this isn't heaven that we're in right now?
Yeah.
It really impacted me, and just thinking about that. And
I think also that it's like, what is existence? There's a lot of ways that you can prove it tangibly. And I would say that what Sean Martin and what Bernard Wright gave to my band are very tangible things that continue now every time we play.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there's nothing, I really feel very strongly that there's not one thing that I can play that sounds good that isn't coming from Bernard Wright.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Bernard, you know, and of course, Sean, you know, was such a force and such a heavy musician, and like had such a big influence on the way that the band plays and the way that the band presents itself. And it's like, that stuff is just on the stage with us every night in a very, very tangible way.
Yeah.
Like, it's not esoteric, You know, like his spirit is with us. It's like, forget the spirit. You don't have to believe in spirits to know that Bernard and Sean exist every time we go on stage and play. You know, or David Crosby exists every time anyone who ever was influenced by him writes a lyric or tunes their guitar in an unconventional way. It's like that, for me, that he's there, you know, and we'll all be there, of course, you know, for the people that knew us and listened to us when we're gone. It's a law. It's not a theory. Matter can never be created or destroyed, only recycled. So it can only change form. So it's like, I believe in that in every sense.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about SOMNI because it is one of my favorite albums you've done, and you're going to get your 6th Grammy. So make some room on that tiny shelf.
Oh, come on.
I kind of feel like it's like peak puppy, I would call it, because as you constantly dial in Snarky Puppy a little bit more, everything from the visual side to the audio side, the coloring of the video, the layout of the audience and the ensemble. It's peak puppy.
I love that.
How do you put that together, man? And as someone who's producing shows all the time, how do you budget it? How do you make it happen, dude?
Well, the answer to the
looks expensive.
It's very expensive. I guess we can talk about the unsexy part first. How do you fund that? Well, you take out gigantic advances from your distributor and from your publisher. That's how you do that. And
biggest possible.
And then you split it with the orchestra, you know? So that's how we funded it. And then you go on tour basically for the entire next year, which is what we're doing this year. It's like we're on tour so much to just pay for it later, you know? So that's how you do it. I guess the first part of your question was, how do you make it happen? Like, how do you make it better and better and better? I mean, you know, on SOMNI, I'm a really big believer in the you know, the phrase, like, if you change the process, you change the product. So if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to kind of end up with the same result. And so I like just doing small changes every time. With Empire Central, we started working with Jep Jorba, a Catalan director, and David Bretones, who's his director of photography. So the visual aesthetic changed significantly with Empire Central. They stayed on for SOMNI. We worked together to go for a slightly different thing, but same team. We went with more cameras, better cameras. We hired an actual lighting engineer for the first time. We had never really done that.
Nice. Instead
of just a DP who's placing lights, but like really a lighting engineer. So we just kind of, just upped every little thing. I, for the first time in my life, went on a solo writing retreat to compose SOMNI. So I went to Japan for 3 weeks and wrote the record there alone in the countryside. You know,
oh, favorite place in the world.
Yeah, incredible. It was incredible. And, you know, stayed above, you know, this cafe run by this really sweet family in Kyushu, and then stayed in like this little, in a coffee shop, above a coffee shop in Takayama in the Japanese Alps in the winter in the snow. It was just like no tourists and just like really nice, you know, super peaceful. And just, you know, so I wanted to change that process. And also, you know, for Silva, I wrote it in its entirety, and I did most of the arranging. You know, Jules Buckley made me sound like I knew what I was doing, but he came into the process at the end of the arranging process. You know, went through everything, cleaned things up, wrote, you know, did the full arranging on certain sections that I hadn't done. But for this record, it was like, okay, again, I'm writing the whole album. If I do all the arranging, it's just going to be a lot of me, you know? So I called Jules and said, like, dude, would you be into really getting in on this earlier and like putting more of your mark on it? And he said, dude, I'll do you one better. Let's get 2 other people. Let's have the 4 of us arrange it together. And then we have more personalities. And I think that was a brilliant decision by Jules. So we involved Sam Gale and Jochen Neufer. And the 4 of us got together in Berlin for 3 days, and we were just like a factory. Like each of them had their own rooms. I was bouncing between rooms, you know, giving feedback. It was amazing. So I think more and more as time goes on, I'm just really into involving other people more heavily in the process. I already know what I can do. I'm sick of me,
Okay, so with these Snarky Puppy projects, how do you get a seat in the room as an audience member?
I'm glad you asked, Elmo. You joined the GroundUP Music mailing list. It's almost like we paid you to say that. No, I'm just kidding. We definitely did not. That was not discussed before everybody.
Mike did not ask me to ask that.
Now, if you're on the GroundUP Music...
I just selfish you want to know.
Yeah, if you're on the GroundUP...
And is there a tennis tournament right before sound check? Oh.
No, but we did heavily contemplate buying a tennis net and setting it up in this massive warehouse next to where we did SOMNI so that we could play matches on breaks. But we didn't get around to doing that. There was a lot going on that week. Basically, if you join the GroundUP Music mailing list, our label's mailing list, then you get first access to tickets, and the tickets always sell out before it goes to the general public. So joining GroundUP Music,
of course,
mailing list is a good idea. Also, it's a good idea if you just want to hear about new, interesting artists. So,
man, I would love to get your thoughts on AI. We're in a really important moment right now, as things are coming out rapidly. There's a ton of tools. There's a ton of non-music tools, and then there's a ton of music tools. I wouldn't expect that you're doing any of the straight up just like song generation, but I'm wondering, how do you feel about the tools, stem separation, these DAWs, the other things that are coming out? What is your overall thought on where we're at and where we're going?
how long do you want this podcast to be, dude?
12 more minutes.
Because I'm telling you, the AI thing is like, it's such a big, deep, dark, long rabbit hole. I mean, it is like, I have a lot of opinions about it. I think that the best way that I could summarize them is that tools are good when they are used ethically by hands that understand how to use them to elevate whatever task it is that they're performing. A hammer can build a house and it can kill someone, right? So AI, I think, is no different. Do I hate AI? Absolutely not. Stem separation? Amazing. If you're, again, as an example, stem separation. Why are you separating stems? Because you need to transcribe something? Maybe you should challenge your ear to try to transcribe it before you separate it, and then use the stem separation to check if you're correct.
Sure.
Right? Again, it's just all about how the tool is used.
The intention of the tool. Yeah.
Yeah, and the application of it. So I think great. Yeah, stem separation is awesome. I think there's a lot of incredible uses for AI in the music world. Generating lyrics for me is not one of them. Mixing entire tracks based on, because these tasks that it's performing, it has trained on human work, right? It's not capable of doing something really new. It's only capable of kind of regurgitating something that has directly been processed. Therefore, I think it should be left out of the creative processes. I don't think it should write lyrics. I don't think it should write chord progressions. I don't think it should have an identity like Xenia Monet or whatever. I can't remember her name. That was the first AI artist to be signed with a $1 million record deal, even though she doesn't exist as a human being. I don't like this stuff. But more than that, what I don't like is that people who have the power to influence and legislate fair use are not doing it because it's not in their financial interest.
Yeah.
So we all know when someone builds the first hammer, someone's going to build a house with it and another person's going to kill someone with it. We already know that, right? That's inevitable. But what do? We say, let's write a law saying that it's illegal to kill someone with a hammer, right? You make laws to prevent that from happening. People will still do it, but they will be in violation of the law, and there will be consequences for that, right? And you maximize the use of the hammer for building houses, right? You put a special grip on it that makes it easier for people to work longer hours, whatever. You adjust the weight to, you optimize it for building. And I think that we're in a moment right now in which it's totally the Wild West. I think there are a lot of organizations that have the ability to ensure that AI is used in a fair and equitable way that compensates musicians whose music is used to train it. I think that there are a lot of organizations that could ensure that legislation is passed that identifies and labels all AI generated music as AI generated, instead of leaving us to guess
Absolutely.
whether it is.
Absolutely.
And these organizations are intentionally not doing it because it's not in their best interest. And they are waiting and hoping that it reaches such a critical mass that it's like a point of no return to where there's no chance of even trying to do those things because we've already gone too far. The same way that Spotify did many years ago. They knew that if they made something appealing enough and affordable enough to the masses, and they knew that if they got the labels to invest and become shareholders in their companies, that if they got the very top and the populace to be on their side, the creators would essentially just be sent into sweatshops, which is where we are now as musicians in a certain kind of way. I mean, I'm being very, very exaggerated with my rhetoric, but that basically all of a sudden this revenue stream that had existed for 100 years was just suddenly chopped out, and we had no say in it because our overlords in the labels took a deal that kept their lights on after the threat of Napster.
Yep.
And they just waited. Everyone just waited until it was too late to reverse it. And that's exactly what's happening right now with AI. And I can't I can't express to what extent I am disgusted and disappointed in the organizations that do have power and ability to influence this and are just not standing up for what's right.
Man, I've been doing these kind of talks. I would love to have you come to one, because my whole thing is exactly as you're saying. We don't have a seat at the table, right? The creatives don't have a seat at the table. The people that the AI tools are impacting, like the musicians, the producers, the songwriters, we don't have a seat at the table. There's essentially, call it 3 tables: the actual creatives in which are being impacted, the companies that are creating the technology, and then the policy makers, right? So I've been doing these events. I'm doing one in New York in a couple weeks, where I bring everyone together and just let everyone talk.
Oh, cool.
So you can be saying your very intelligent opinions that matter a lot because it directly impacts you and you're living this, right? And actually talk to policy people, talk to the founders of these companies, and so they can hear you not in an argument setting, in a, hey,
sure,
we got to figure this out because it's not going to just go away, right? The same thing, Spotify and all these things never went away. Spotify was able to fight Apple and Amazon and the huge incumbents that came at it looking at music as a loss leader. Spotify still won. There they are today. Same with Netflix versus Disney and everybody else.
Yeah.
How can we make this as right as possible? Because the tech isn't going to go away. So what can we do?
Well, I mean, winning is also a lot easier when you don't have any ethical ground that you're standing on.
Yeah.
If the objective is winning and you have no real principles to defend, you're only after the W, man, how much flexibility does that afford you? Immediately you just have a massive advantage. But to answer your question, what do we do? Well, first off, as listeners, I think you should think very seriously about not supporting companies that populate playlists with AI, that allow AI-generated frauds to be uploaded to artists' profiles without their consent and then take 3 weeks to be taken down, as was the case with me personally, and also Snarky Puppy. Less than 3 weeks with Snarky Puppy, but for me it was 3 weeks before Spotify pulled it, once it was identified as fraud.
Wow.
I think consumers have a lot more power than they think. They have the ability to influence the the way that companies govern themselves based on where they put their money. So don't support unethical companies. That would be my first thing. For musicians, I think we have to speak out about what's happening, make our voices heard, make people aware of the threat that is being posed, especially by AI-generated music that gets illegally and fraudulently uploaded to our accounts. And beyond that, I think we just have to put pressure on
Yes.
organizations and individuals that have the ability to affect change.
Yes.
Because if they don't hear from us, they're always going to make the decision that behooves them. And I think we just have to put heat on them. We got to put heat on everybody, that has the ability to impact it.
Well, dude, I could talk to you for hours, and there's a bunch of other stuff that I wish I could get into, but I know we already took a bunch of your time, and I appreciate it, man. And I loved our hang so much. I'll just plant a little seed right now because this is something I wanted to talk with you about, but just your immersion into the Middle Eastern world and sounds and oud and everything else that you're doing with tabla and all this stuff. Like, I have some ideas I want to talk with you about.
Okay, cool. Yeah, please.
And I've been spending a lot of time in Dubai and in Saudi and in Lebanon and like jumping around, and I have some fun music projects that are going on there, and I just think
cool.
You're I would love to tap into that more with you, because I do think that the Oriental sounds of the Arabic music world and everything could be incredibly successful in hitting more into Western culture and Western sounds. And I love the music a lot, and I know you do too. So I would love to, we're going to talk about that later, because I got to jump, you got to jump, unfortunately. But,
cool.
But dude, thank you so much for the hang, bros. It was great talking.
Me too. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me, for sure. Great. I loved it.
Yes, man. And we'll hang in person one of these days. I wish I could fly right back to Spain right now to play tennis with you. I'm so tired, and I can't wait to sleep tonight, bro. I landed late last night, and then we did this at 10 a.m. my time.
Enjoy it. If you change your mind, we got a spot for you in the tournament. You just let me know.
I appreciate that. I'm going to live through the chat. I'm going to live vicariously through the chat.
There will be plenty of activity this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, make a ton of noise for Michael League in peak puppy mode. He's hitting it. We're living peak puppy.
You love that
and
button.
We love it.
You love that audience applause button. There's a second one.
Go with Elmo. 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 This is the stuff, man.